Cities have always been mirrors of the souls of their inhabitants. Damascus, on the other hand, is a mirror of everything. It makes you want to find the meaning of your life in its alleys. It makes you want to take in every detail that you're witnessing. You want it to be yours and yours alone. Like any other person from Damascus, wandering in the alleys that are filled with jasmines, you want to have the right to sleep while the melodies of prayers can be heard from the minarets. Staying in a city like this is similar to staying in the crater of a volcano. It is a city that seeps anger and rejection towards those who believe they could touch even a single of its pebbles. It has been this way since the entry of Arabs and Ajam into it. Damascus, Al-Fayha. It is a dream that has wandered in the imagination and hopes of Muslims since the first pioneers of Islam came to this area to conquer it and spread Islam outside the Arabian Peninsula. It is the birthplace of revelation and the cradle of Islam. Islam permitted it, during the era of Umar ibn al-Khattab, to appear to the world. Muslims were planning their next stage. They had no obstacles ahead of them except for the city of Damascus. The city still has the largest Roman garrison structures in its land. The Islamic army began to prepare for war against the Roman armies in Damascus. It should be noted here that the Muslims left Al-Qudus and headed for Damascus, despite the presence of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Al-Qudus, and it being the Misra of the Prophet. They were supposed to take care in the process of conquering it. However, the Muslims, with the greatness of Al-Aqsa Mosque in their hearts, had less concern for buildings and facilities. Rather, they cared about spreading Allah's call across the earth. However, Al-Qudus did not have many residents. At that time, however, Damascus was full of people, and it was fortified. It hosted the largest Roman garrison at the time. The Muslims preferred to leave Al-Qudus and moved toward Damascus. They were adamant and would not stop until they ended the control the Romans had over this area. They desired to spread Islam in this region. The leaders of the armies of the conquest at the time were Khalid ibn al-Walid, who conquered Damascus, and Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, who conquered Homs, Hama, Apamea, Latakia, and Tartus. These cities were conquered by peaceful means, without any battles. The Syrians were granted safety by the religion of Islam. Their people, belongings, and religious freedom were all secured. The covenant of security that was granted to Damascus was an example of the covenants that were granted to other cities later on. Islam began to spread its holy aura in this region. Homs was the first city in which Islam's aura could be felt. The countryside remained primarily Christian until the end of the Umayyad era, as were most of the tribes of the area until the 10th century. During the Islamic history, this honorable country was the scene of a number of countries and important events, such as the Umayyad and Zangid states. Damascus was the honorable Levant in the literature of the Middle Ages. This highlighted its importance and location, not to mention its fame for the shrines and the tombs of the saints that it hosts. Damascus was the capital of the Umayyad dynasty, whose borders extended from Andalusia to Afghanistan. It was inhabited by a number of the companions, Ahl al-Bayt, and followers. They died and were buried there. Tribal fighting was the most prominent disadvantage of the Umayyad era, which led to the weakening of the state and the destabilization of its forces. These elements led to the expedited decline and degeneration of the state. The Abbasid era had several positive factors in Syria, which included establishing the Hamadani state, as well as entering the country for a period of time within the boundaries of the Fatimid Caliphate, and the presence of the Seljuks as heirs of the Fatimid state in the Levant. The Ottomans would eventually make their way to the city and disrupted any splendor or wonder the city had. After years of ignorance, backwardness, and colonialism, a distinct cultural renaissance was born. National societies were established, with some of them being secretive and some of them being public. They demanded the reform of the Ottoman Empire, then openly demanded their independence from it. Syria was not explicitly mentioned in the Holy Quran, but religious scholars and jurists referred to the beginning of Surah Al-Isra.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير.
It is a direct reference not only to Al-Qudus and Palestine, but the phrase, whose surroundings we have blessed, indicates the whole of the Levant, which includes Syria. The same applies to the interpretation of the beginning of Surah At-Tin.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون.
Religious scholars have found that olives refer to Al-Qudus, which is renowned for its olives. The mountain near it is called Mount of Olives. Figs, on the other hand, are a reference to Damascus, which is famous for this type of fruit. Surah Al-Anbiya also seems to refer to Syria in an indirect manner in the following verse.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونجيناه ولوطا إلى الأرض التي باركنا فيها للعالمين.
The verse refers to the Prophet Ibrahim and the Prophet Lut, who had left Iraq for the Levant, which was described as the blessed land of the world. Perhaps you are not a fan of observing the ruins. However, Damascus will always have you coming back to it, and you have no choice but to do so. You have no say in this matter. The waves, winds, sands, and the stars all speak out to you in a lovely Levantine dialect that has you staying and listening. It is surrounded by volcanic mountains, and the plains of the Hauran from the south, the Kalamun and the eastern Lebanon mountain ranges from the north and west, and the Syrian desert in the south. Overlooking the Barada River, it is surrounded by the orchards of Ghuta, Mount Qaysun, and Al-Rabwa. How can you look away from all of this? The history of this city dates back to 9000 BC. Excavations near it at the site of Tel el-Ramad have made this evident. Some historians state that its history dates back to the 7th millennium BC, and that it is one of the oldest cities and capital of several civilizations throughout history. When you obtain an item, you may seek a newer version of it and replace it. When you settle for silver and it decides to forsake you, you can exchange it for gold. However, what do you do when you fall in love with a city? What can you possibly replace it with when there is no such thing as an alternative city? Damascus, which bears thousands of names. Some may tell you that its name is of ancient Assyrian origins, and that it means flourishing or fertile land. Others may claim that it was named Sham, in relation to Sam ibn Nuh, peace be upon him. Other names may include Iram of Pillars, Habr, Moram, Durrat al-Sharq, Shamat al-Dunya, and the City of Jasmines. However often you washed in the waters of the Danube, the Mississippi, or the Rhine rivers, only the cold water here will purify you during ablution. It will make your skin wet and never dry. It is the water that leaves a cool sensation on you that you can feel as you prepare for ablution in the great Umayyad Mosque. It is the oldest and most complete Islamic masterpiece that is still present, displaying its grandeur, unique design, and the ingenuity of its architecture. It was built according to a new and innovative outline that is compatible and suitable for the rites of the Islamic religion. It was made as an expression of the Levantine era and Islamic architecture. The Umayyad Mosque was built by the Umayyad Caliph Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, and it took about 10 years to build. The mosque was built in the form of an open courtyard. It is surrounded by 3 rows of columns with a roofed sanctuary in the middle, of which is a high portico, from the north to the south of the area. The Dome of the Eagle is found in the center of it. Its walls are decorated with mosaics. Double covers were draped over its doors, and crystal lanterns were suspended in its halls using gold chains. It has the first minaret in Islam, the Minaret of the Bride. It currently has 3 minarets, 4 doors, a large dome, 3 domes in the courtyard, and 4 mihrabs. It is also Mashhad of Uthman, Abu Bakr, Al-Hussein, and Urwa. It has huge mosaic murals, halls, and a museum. The Minaret of the Bride has become a model of minarets in Syria and North Africa. Its motifs made their way to Andalusia. The tomb of the Prophet Yahya, peace be upon him, can be found here. Next to him lies the hero, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. Near it are many shrines and tombs of the men and renowned figures of Islam. You would be tormenting yourself if you did not ride your horse and bear witness to another architectural masterpiece called the Taqiyya Sulaymaniyya. In the center of the Syrian capital of Damascus, and to the west of the Martyrs Square, the most impressive Ottoman Islamic architecture with characteristics from Damascus can be seen. It was built by Sultan Sulayman the Magnificent, and it extends over an area of 11,000 square meters in an architectural scene that combines charm, glamour, and meekness. Since its construction, and to this day, the Taqiyya Sulaymaniyya is considered one of the most important and most beautiful Islamic buildings in the Umayyad metropolis. It was designed by the famous Ottoman architect, Sinan Pasha. Its construction was supervised by Al-Attar, an architect from Damascus. The Taqiyya consists of a western and eastern building. The eastern part was built in the Ottoman Istanbulian style. The western architecture follows the Taqiyya style. It is surrounded by a wall that has 3 main doors. It has an open courtyard that has a pool and a beautiful fountain. The courtyard was constructed with white and black stones. The corridors are covered with small domes. Behind them are larger domes that roof large rooms. The magnificent Taqiyya Mosque is located on the southern side of it. It is distinguished by its slender, graceful minarets. They are similar in height and shape. The northern side consists of large rooms that are covered with domes and are situated on internal stone columns. There is a commercial market consisting of 22 stores in At-Taqiyya. They provide for the needs of pilgrims on their way to Mecca. From how the Islamic Taqiyya is segmented, it becomes evident that its role revolves around establishing rituals of worship and sheltering and feeding those who are in need and poor while educating them. Remember, dear friend, that no matter how much you have traveled, and no matter how many cities you have seen, there is no alternative to the city of Damascus.